Thank you for tuning in to catch today's edition of the Tax Talk. My name is Oyinlola Sale and I'll be guiding you through the show today. We have business news, corporate talk, tax did it, and tax your brain, all lined up for your entertainment. Here on the Tax Talk, we seek to familiarize you as a Lagos State resident and taxpayer on everything related to tax administration within the state. Let's take business news first.
This is business news. Arrangements are in top gears for this year's Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria's 26th Annual Tax Conference, set to hold May 13 to 17 in Abuja. CITN is a professional body with the authority to regulate tax practice and administration in Nigeria. It promotes professional ethics in tax, efficiency in tax administration, and practices in Nigeria as it ensures only registered members practice taxation. The CITN president, Barrister Samuel Agbeluyi, said issues around tariffs, economic growth, and impact assessment of the manufacturing sector, amongst others, will take center stage at the forthcoming conference. Barrister Agbeluyi said the annual tax conference is expected to bring together tax professionals, policymakers, and stakeholders to discuss current issues and trends in taxation. According to him, the conference will, as usual, provide a platform for networking, knowledge sharing, and professional development. The Lagos State Internal Revenue Service, LIRS, will be part of the participant at the conference themed Sustainable Tax Culture and Economic Roadmap for Nation Building. And that's it on Business News.
I will make a start shortlist business. They give them 150K to my friends. Let's do this. Taxes? I didn't even think about this. So I'll have to pay tax to build a house in Lagos. Maybe I should take a remote job. That way, I can avoid taxes. But wait, bloggers and content creators pay taxes too. So tax officials in Lagos monitor digital space for tax payment. Wait, why don't I start importing and exporting of phones and gadgets? Bro, how far now?
Femo, how far?
Bro, I won't join the business where they do.
Oh, small. You just need money. I hope you have your tax clearance certificate.
Tax? Are you kidding me?
Without it, shishi, you know fit do. You have to visit the nearest tax office.
I can't believe it. There's no way out of this. I have to face my tax obligations if I want to start a life in Lagos.
Dear Lagosians, your taxes enable the government to invest in education, healthcare, security, housing, and many more. By continuing to pay your taxes, you are investing in a brighter future for all. This message is brought to you by the Lagos State Internal Revenue Service, LIRS.
If this is your first time or you're just tuning into the show, welcome. At this point, we are getting set for Corporate Talk, a segment where we go one-on-one with experienced hands in the field of tax administration. Today's topic is one every taxpayer in the state needs to pay attention to: the rights of a taxpayer, bridging the gap between tax laws and everyday practice. Mrs. Funke Oladoke, partner, Tax and Regulatory Services Unit, Deloitte, is our expert guest today. Deloitte has partnered with the LIRS a number of times, so the Lagos State terrain is not strange to her. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, it's certainly my pleasure. Could you give us an overview of the fundamental rights of a taxpayer within the context of Nigerian tax laws?
Thank you. As you probably know, the tax law sits between the taxpayer and the tax authority, right? And as you will imagine, there are laws, there are rights for both the taxpayer and the tax authority in the tax law. So when we talk about the taxpayer, which is the conversation we're having this afternoon, it's more about what are the rights of the taxpayers. If I can start from the one that is very, very common, is the right to object. So the taxpayer has the right to object to any assessment that has been raised by the tax authority. I know some people feel that once those assessments are raised, that is the end. No, that is not what it is. You have a right to object, and the procedures are well laid down, going even beyond the tax authority to the court, and at times even to the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in the land. So that right exists. The second one is the right to information. What we found out, and that has always been the gap, one of the gaps that we've noticed, when you come up with an assessment, the taxpayer has a right to ask you, where did you get this from? So the taxpayer has a right to information from the tax authority to say, give me the basis of this assessment. And you, as a tax authority, you have the obligation to do that. The third one I want to talk about is right to confidentiality. Now, when you come to audit a taxpayer's books, there will be a lot of things you will see. And even in the reconciliation process, a lot of documents will be provided. You have the obligation to keep those documents that have been provided to you confidential.
Tax agencies like the LRS frequently update guidelines and regulations. As an expert in consulting, how do you ensure clear communication between clients who are unfamiliar with the tax modalities?
Good. So the simple answer is stakeholders engagement. Now, if you recall, in the last 4 years, we've been having updates to the tax laws by the way of Finance Act. And what typically happens is that when those laws are amended, there will be guidelines and, that will be issued pursuant to that. The interesting thing is that when those guidelines are issued, before they are issued or released, we always, like a firm of ours, for instance, and some other, firms engage with the tax authorities. So we look at the draft to ensure that it is robust enough, to ensure that gray areas are clarified before they are released. And when they are released, what we do is that, for instance, we have articles, newsletters issued just to break it down. In some instances, depending on the complexity of the amendment to the Act, we have webinars, we have conferences where we basically put taxpayers together and explain to them. So it's like having issues, something that is like 1, 2, 3 ways of interpreting what has happened in the tax law. So stakeholders engagement, and I've seen a couple of things like that being done, just like we're having it now, where you discuss topical issues, you discuss amendments to the tax law, you do the ABC, that's what it's called, yes, ABC of the, the nuances around those amendments. So you engage with the taxpayers, and then you create a forum. So at times you might have to have sessions, seminars where taxpayers come in, we need this application. And if you find out there are particular areas in the tax law, which we also do, particular areas in the tax law, where constantly there's been friction between the taxpayer and the tax authority, you issue what they call clarification, document or anything you want to call it, to say further clarification on this aspect of the tax law, so that at least it brings everybody to we're on the same page. And one of the things that has also happened is that before those Finance Acts are even released, you have stakeholders meeting. I expect that in the next couple of months, they will start that. They go, everywhere, call everybody to come in, have a discussion, see whether, at times it can be clauses, it can be just a comma or a semicolon, and makes the difference, right? So people come in, people that are experts in writings and things like that, they come in, they look at it, what is the intention of the law? The way we have put it, could it be clear? Is it clear enough? And if we release those laws, we find out that, okay, maybe we need to have clarification letters or articles or whatever it is that has to be issued, where taxpayers can do that. And another thing is that for a lot of taxpayers are becoming very knowledgeable. You can just go on the internet, you type what you want, and you see a lot of articles being written. When we have the opportunities, when you have, for instance, the chairman goes for an event, you see him everywhere, he's also making clarification, he's also explaining, so that in the end, we are sure that this is the intention of the law, and the taxpayer also has that same interpretation of what those amendments are. I think that has worked. I know it has worked for us as a firm, and it continues to work for almost everybody.
So when your clients feel like their rights have been infringed upon by the LRS, especially during an investigation audit, how do you manage such situations?
Okay, good. Now, if you look at an investigation process or audit process, you start with the opening meeting where the LRS officials come in, they tell you the purpose of or why they are there, right? And then they always have, meetings during when they are on the field stage of the audit. And of course, by the time they finish the audit, they round up the field stage, there will always be meetings with stakeholders, right? And so what happens is that, what typically happens is that when the client feels they have been aggrieved, if they feel they have reservation, they have the opportunity during those meetings to bring those up. We must understand that we're talking about LRS officials that are quite professional in the way they do the thing. So it's not, it might just be out of, they don't have that intention to aggrieve the taxpayers or to make them feel uncomfortable. I think at times it can be the pressure of the work, or maybe they are not getting the information they need as they will expect it. So there's the tendency for everybody to be agitated, and so, but what we always encourage taxpayers to say is to speak up. It's better for you to speak up. We engage with the LRS officials and say, look, these are the reservations we have, and most of the time, if not all, because I can't even think of an exception, there will be a change of tactics, right? Where they listen more. So if the issue is you've been asking for a lot of documentation, you ask for this or duplication in some of the things you're asking for. So the same set of information you're asking over and over and over again, and maybe the taxpayer feels I've provided them. So there's a disconnect, right? But the way out is to engage. Even when they will have exited, the field stage of the audit is over, there will still be engagement where we come for reconciliation meetings. At that point in time, you still have the opportunity to express yourself. So for us, and for me as a person, I always tell my taxpayer, my clients, look, if you are aggrieved, let's know, let's engage. And in all cases, almost in all cases, they listen, right? The tax officials listen, the LRS, they will listen, and then they will change tactics, because in the end, what we are trying to achieve is, myself as a taxpayer, I don't want to pay more than I need to pay. LRS wants you to pay the right taxes, but you also need to be comfortable and understand the process that is giving rise to whatever additional dispute that may come up from the investigation exercise. So I think that is what it is.
It has been an engaging conversation so far, but at this point, we need to go on a short break.
Thank you.
Mrs. Funke Oladoke will still be here when we return from the break. I trust you will too. Don't change that dial.
Have you had a hard time with taxes and understanding tax administration in Lagos State and the complex nature of Nigerian tax law? Do you know what agency or tier of government collects the various types of taxes? Have you ever found yourself asking any of these questions? Join us for your favorite program, The Tax Talk, your infotainment program.
Welcome back. We've been talking to Mrs. Funke Oladoke, a partner at Deloitte, on the rights of a taxpayer. We still have a few more questions for you, ma'am. Tax authorities emphasize voluntary compliance. What is your strategy to encourage same among the diverse set of taxpayers in whom you consult for?
Thank you. So when you look at the cost of non-compliance, it's actually huge and is increasing, right? So it pays you to comply. And that's what we tell our clients, right? You need to comply, you need to file returns where you're supposed to file returns. At times, we set alarms or deadlines or, triggers so that, when they look at it, they know when they're supposed to file returns. Because the truth is that some companies are also very, they are very mindful of that. It doesn't matter what the volume is or the value. What they are after is the fact that they don't want to be seen to be paying penalties and interest. So our own stand is do the right thing, right? So when you do the right thing, you avoid penalties, you avoid interest, you avoid potentially being blacklisted, because you also don't want to find yourself on the other side of the law. And that's why for taxes that are due to the Lagos State Inland Revenue Service, at times if you feel that the deadline is fast approaching, and you are not able to meet that, engage with them. Let them know the reason why you are not able to file at the stipulated time.
I'm curious about the tax audit process. What rights do taxpayers possess during a tax audit process?
Good. So the first thing is they have a right to be notified if you're going to have an audit, an audit done. And when you write them, they can come back to you if they feel that it's not so convenient. So the LRS has the obligation to look at the merit of the reasons why they're saying you can't start on a particular date, right? And what we're saying is that usually, most of the time, those requests are granted. So when they are granted, they have a right. So they come for an audit. They have a right to ask, especially if it's an investigation, because the investigation is a little bit different from an audit. It's usually triggered by certain events. So a taxpayer has a right to say, why are you here? Why are you having an investigation exercise? Why is it not an audit? You need to be able to explain to them so that they know that this is why you're here. A taxpayer has a right to question some of the things you're asking. So if you ask them, I need this particular schedule, taxpayer can say, what do you need it for? And it also helps them, because the truth is that the LRS officials know why they're asking. You probably don't know. You need to ask them so that if those specific things that they need to see, for instance, if you're asking them, give me a schedule of your transaction with this particular month, what do you need it for? They ask the LRS officials. They will tell them, oh, we want to be able to estimate what the withholding tax or what the should be, so that I know that as a taxpayer, oh, I've already gotten the information. I know why you're asking. Then I present it in a format that will be useful to you, right? And then when you come out, when you're done with the audit, the LRS officials will have meetings with you. Oh, we're done. This is what it is. These are outstanding information. Taxpayer also has the right to say, look, I provided this, because typically you keep a log of what you've provided. So you give it to them and say, look, I provided this. Oh, yes, we are aware that you provided, but we need it in another format. So those are the rights. And then when they go back to the office, they issue an assessment. You keep engaging. They have right to be called to a meeting, right to be explained to how you arrive at any liability, right to object, and is within a time frame. And the time frame is stipulated in the tax law. So when you give a taxpayer an assessment and you say, oh, pay within 2 days, there's no such thing. So the taxpayer has a right to push back. And then even if they are not satisfied, after several meetings, the taxpayer, by law, can seek redress somewhere. Tax appeal tribunal, they can take it to the court. And like I said earlier on, when you get to the court, you can get to the highest that you in terms of court hierarchy in Nigeria. So those are their rights. And when you respect those rights, they will know that they are not just being boxed to a corner. It's for us to be able to get the right amount or have a right way of resolving the matter. So those are the rights that they have. They have a right to ask questions if they are not sure, and the LRIs have a right to respond. Not ignore them, not say, oh, why are you asking and asking? And they keep asking until the matter is resolved. So those are the rights, that they have under the tax law.
On a final note, I would just like to know, do taxpayers overpay their taxes, and how do you get a refund for them?
The answer is yes, they overpay, and it could be, and most of the time is because of maybe there are errors in your computation. So for instance, you're supposed to withhold tax, or you're supposed to pay tax at 10%, 5%, and you've done it at 10%. That obviously you've over-remitted tax. Or you think that in your payee computation, there were some errors or some relief that you should have granted to your employees, but you didn't do. So you find out, so afterwards you find out that you've overpaid tax. Yes, the tax law has provision for you to seek for a refund, whether when you think you have a valid case. Now, the tax law also gives you that option of offsetting. So rather than seeking for a cash refund, you just seek for a refund as a credit against your future tax liability. So in the instance of a cash refund, obviously you will expect that there will be an audit. The audit will be done, and once the LRS established the fact that indeed there was an overpayment of tax, they can give you the cash back. So refund is possible, is doable, is in the law, is permissible, and people do it. They seek for refund when they think they've overpaid tax.
Thank you so much for coming on the Tax Talk today. You've expanded my wealth of knowledge regarding this topic. We appreciate your presence.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Please stay with us on the Tax Talk as there is still more to come after this break. You're still watching the Tax Talk and you can find us on social media with the handles on your screen. The LRS also remains accessible online via not just their website but their social media handles as well. It's time now to check out Tax Did It, a visual diary of what the government in Lagos State has done with the taxes entrusted to it.
We said we're going to reconstruct completely this 18.75 kilometer road. And today, we're thankful to God because we have transformed from a 2-lane rural road to a 6-lane rigid concrete road with full complement of all of the road infrastructure, including street lights, with drainage complements. And this, we can say, is one of the best roads that you can see in any part of this country. This is one of the best newly constructed rigid pavement roads that you can be proud of. And why so? It's because we believe you deserve it. Because we believe our citizens on this corridor deserves the very best. We cannot shortchange you. You don't deserve half measures. You deserve the very, very best and the best in class. And that's why we're happy that you are also happy with the retinue of our traditional institutions that are here, with the compliments of all our religious leaders that are here, with the compliments of all our community leaders, our political leaders that are here, that you have come to confirm and validate our decision to build this road. And because you know that we're a listening government, and the fact that you cry to us is not because you just want to be a complainer, because you believe we can do it. And you said to us, we should continue with the phase 2 of it. And you can see that the phase 2 also has started. And the phase 2 is not just reconstruction, it's also widening into 6 lanes.
You just saw Tax Did It right here on the Tax Talk. Evidence that Lagos is working. The streets of Lagos is our next port of call with our man on the streets, ready with the day's trivia question.
The federal, I know about the federal, but Lagos, I think is a state internal generated revenue. Yeah, something like that.
Lagos State Internal Revenue Service.
Yeah, Lagos State Inland Revenue Service.
IFRS.
LIRS, I'm supposed to.
As much as we love bringing the show to you, the time you spend with us on a weekly basis is what makes it all worthwhile. A quick reminder before we go that the Lagos State Internal Revenue Service, LIRS, remains available online and can be engaged from the comfort of your home. You can also follow the Tax Talk across all social media platforms. My name is Oyinlola Saleh. Till we meet again, please stay safe.